everyone. Thank you for joining us. Please do, think about if you want to ask questions as we're going along. Please do put them in the chat, and they will be passed on to us. My name's Alison Baker. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm going to be the moderator. Hopefully, you won't be hearing an awful lot from me because I've got some fascinating panelists here. So can I start with Helen C? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Helen Corcoran. My pronouns are she, her. I am a writer of YA and adult, and I'm a former. My debut YA novel came out this June with the O'Brien Press. It's called Queen of Coin and Whispers, and is a fantasy of manners with political intrigue.
Brilliant, thank you. Valerie, would you like to go next?
Hi everyone, I'm Valerie Estelle Frankel. I write critical works. I'm the editor of, whatever this is called, Fourth Wave Feminism in Science Fiction and Fantasy, volumes 1 and 2. And it's an anthology where I just had everybody write about whatever movies and TV they wanted, and I specifically did not define fourth wave feminism. I just said, talk about whatever you want. I had a friend who said, I hate feminism, I feel left out from it. And I said, great, write me an essay. Put it in there. Tell me your story. And I also write books about She-Ra, Doctor Who, Orphan Black, etc., new Star Wars, all this stuff. And I do have review copies on all this if you want to message me on Discord or email or something. So yeah, I've got lots to talk about.
Well, I don't think we need to ask Valerie why she's on this panel. She's basically our expert. James, would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm James Brophy. I'm an illustrator, but the reason I'm here is because I think for a lot of Irish people, a lot of Irish men especially, feminism became a much more active and real and concrete thing with the campaign to repeal the Eighth and the campaign for marriage equality, where for people who are younger than me, I've noticed that feminism is talked about in an abstract sense, but if you're a little more politically aware, you can actually point across and go, oh yeah, like that person over there who changed my nation to be more fair. And that's why I think it's an important topic, and it's good to demystify it, and it's good to have conversations around it. And if there's something I can plug, Octagon has a Teespring site where we sell merch now, and I just finished building that this morning. So if y'all want to go along and buy a mug or a sticker, we have Wonder Woman Octos.
That sounds awesome. Thank you very much. And Helen R, who's one of our guests of honor. Would you like to introduce yourself, Helen?
Hi, so I'm Helen Ryder, and I've I was involved in the early days of Octagon, and as James mentioned, a lot of feminism in Ireland was recently focused on repeal the Eighth and the marriage equality referendum. I was especially involved in the marriage equality referendum in my own area, and working with one of my inspirations, Catherine Sapone, the TD, who at that time was centre. And we just, I think being open about what feminism means to us, it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people. And I like the idea of opening out the ideas of intersectionality. Feminism is not just for women. So.
Thank you very much. Well, my first question is indeed about fourth wave feminism. It is, what does fourth wave feminism mean to you? So, James, you've mentioned this. Would you like to kick us off with this discussion?
Well, it's a topic that comes up a lot, and I unfortunately see I'm quite enmeshed with a number of people who really enjoy video games and video game culture, and one of the things we see come up again and again and again through the discourse of video game culture is the idea that feminists are somehow trying to take away our toys. And this is a thing that's said by people who you wouldn't really think of as well versed in feminism. And as I understand it, the mechanics are thus: the world is unfair, and the largest group the world is consistently unfair to is women. And as long as you understand those two concepts, congratulations, you're a feminist. And the fourth wave of such is the understanding that the overlapping areas of things being difficult. So things are more difficult if you're in a wheelchair than if you're not. Things are more difficult if you're a certain race in a certain place than if you're not. And understanding that there's a complexity to this, and that we all have issues that we are all dealing with. And we should try and be kind and try and be understanding as much as one humanly can before one goes mad, is important to be. And it's not actually about taking anything away from anybody. It's not about not allowing you to watch your favorite cartoon show from 30 years ago. It's not about taking a video game away from somebody. It's just about increasing a little bit of fairness and representing the world possibly a little more as it is, and possibly a little less as a little less as we have traditionally done so for like no good reason other than tradition. I don't know if that's an answer to your question or not.
It is. That's really thank you very much. Valerie, what's your understanding, since you've written the book on it, what's your understanding? Well, you've written the introduction to the book on it. What's your understanding of fourth wave feminism?
And other books too, but anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a couple quick bullet points, and yes, I will like repeat these in Discord later or something. I think fourth wave is intersectional, multicultural, a lot more agency than we used to have. We've got a new focus on own voices, which is, maybe we should have Black people write Black Panther instead of Stan Lee write Black Panther. Imagine how different the story could be. Could we actually get somebody who's... So, for instance, comic books, I've seen them going out and getting YA authors who actually fit in these demographics instead of just having the same comic book authors as before. So you can really see a change in like Marvel Comics right now. And to finish my bullet points, we are sexualizing the women a heck of a lot less. And yes, we've reached the era of instant internet pushback in all directions. Yes, we've got the "we hate Ghostbusters before it's even come out" crowd. And we've also got the Star Wars, you just announced that you're bringing one woman into Force Awakens. Maybe you want to bring more than one woman into Force Awakens, which actually changed the content. So again, instant internet feedback in all directions.
And I believe we also got a Miss Marvel action figure toy in the shops. And no doubt someone on Discord will tell me if I'm talking nonsense, but I believe that we got the Miss Marvel action figure in shops much more quickly than was originally planned. And certainly, my stepson, who is 11, absolutely loves Miss Marvel. He's a white, half American, half British boy. And he is, as far as I know, cisgender. As far as I know, he's straight, but he loves Ms. Marvel and thinks she's amazing and plays with his Ms. Marvel toy an awful lot. She sometimes beats up Flash, actually, which I think is only reasonable. Helen C., can I come to you next?
Yes, as both James and Valerie have said, I feel fourth wave feminism is more intersectional of like race and culture and sexuality, and that it's not just, I think we're moving away from that idea that feminism is that women like should be in charge, women should be in power, and I think it's more, we're kind of realizing that the patriarchy hurts like everyone, is as awful to men as to women. And I think we're much more aware of things like toxic masculinity now and how that affects men and women. And I think it's just, again, it's just more seeing a fair world, and that things are harder for certain people depending on where they are and when, you know, they were born, and how their lives are happening. I think it's just trying to be more aware of people and trying to be kinder.
That's great. Thank you very much. And Helen R., what's your take on fourth wave feminism?
Well, to my mind, fourth wave feminism, everything's been a step beyond. First wave being suffrage, second wave being anti-discrimination, coming up to us. So now we've gone beyond those levels. We're now saying, now, rather than just looking for superiority, which is what some men think we're doing in terms of what women want, we're now saying, no, we need equality, but more important, we need equity. Equality could mean having two kids, one tall, one short, neither being able to see over a wall. You give them each a box. The tall one can see over, the small one can't. Make it equal, make it equitable. And as everyone says, that cuts across all areas of life. Feminism for a long time was dominated by white cisgender women. So now we're looking for the women of colour, we're looking for women and men with disabilities, with gender identity changes, important. We're more accepting of different sexualities now. So we have to really push forward now to bring that equity to the world, and everyone has to join in, male, female, transgender, cisgender, whatever.
And I think the word that's been mentioned a couple of times is intersectionality. Would one of you like to sort of use a kind of, in very simple terms, what your understanding of intersectionality is?
James pretty much covered it. The concept of I care about your group's problems, even though I'm not a member of that group, and I want to hear what your group's problems are.
Yeah, absolutely that. I think it's the recognition that while all people of colour and all women and all people who are disabled and all people who are not heterosexual, they all face difficulties in the world. But for some people, that difficulty might be exacerbated by their social class or their gender or expression or their marital state. So for example, it's difficult for, let's say it's difficult for all women to become members of parliament, but it's particularly difficult for Black women, or it's particularly difficult for trans women, or it's particularly difficult for disabled women. And so that sort of understanding of that. Thank you all very much. So my second question is about female action heroes. Now apparently, according to some people on the internet, all female action heroes are terrible, and we can tell that because Catwoman and Elektra were not very good films. However, we forget that we had Sarah Connor in Terminator, and we also had, of course, Agent Ripley. So let's think what female superheroes or female action heroes do you particularly like? And what do you feel that what pitfalls might need to be avoided in rushing to repeat the success of Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel? Shall we go with Helen Corcoran first?
It's not quite an action figure, but actually one of the big ones from when I was a teenager was actually Buffy, because Buffy came out when I was about 11 or 12, and it was the first time I'd seen like a woman on TV fighting, and she was able to hold like her own, and I was so excited about Wonder, about I went to see the female Ghostbusters reboot, and it was that bit towards the end where they're all getting ready to face it, and the Ghostbusters came on. Us were just like bouncing in our just are really. And when Wonder Woman came out, there was a great deal of discussion about her costume because better than some of the earlier films, but also the fact that a lot of Greek historical detail went into her costume, but it was still seen as like, you know, a very like sexual type costume. And I think it's that weird thing of sometimes we automatically see things that a female action hero is being sexualized, even when there's natural historical icon for it.
That's a really good point.
Can you guys still hear me? My internet might be okay. Thank you. Internet. Just think as well. Sometimes it's just being able to see a woman getting like angry like on screen and punching something really, really freeing. There's a lot of talk this year because the Wonder Woman sequel has been delayed and may still be brought out in cinemas, and that might affect COVID. And there is that fear that if the second Wonder Woman film bombs, we're basically going again 5 years. And it would just be nice that that so much didn't ride on so little, and it's pretty like lost female years have to prove themselves for.
Thank you, Helen. You're breaking up a little bit. I think I'm going to move
just
on.
keep.
Thank you. Let's go to James next. What do you think about the pitfalls of female-led action movies? Or, you know, can we just kind of say, well, too bad, we've had plenty of terrible male action hero movies?
Jason Statham makes literally thousands of films that you will never see, and for very good reason.
I don't know, James. I'm quite a fan of Jason Statham. I've probably seen most of them.
Have you seen Blitz? There's a great scene at the start where he's supposed to be an Irishman wielding a hurley, and he has nothing of an Irish accent. It's a great speech, though. But yes, the point I was trying to make there was that there's no weight on generic male action movies and mid-level generic male action movies like there is on even like the mid-level of female action movies. You can go back in time, and male film reviewers tend to respect existing institutions. And so it's a lot harder for an original character to get out in front. And this is the advantage of superhero movies now, is that they come pre-established. Even if only maybe 200,000 people in total have ever read a comic book with the character in it, there's something you have to respect about the institution of it when it turns up. So Captain Marvel is already an institution, it already has a fan base, it already has a well-read comic, and it's well-reviewed. And so film reviewers had to respect that, because this also comes in a line of, well, if you like Iron Man and Captain America and Thor, then you have to like this because it's the next thing. And that takes a lot of the weight off of it. One of my favorite points was when at a previous convention, we had a Star Trek versus Star Wars panel, and a little boy came up and asked what he thought the panel's conjecture on what was going to happen with Rey in the next movie was. And I think that's the example of where the existing property can actually do the most for forwarding female action heroes, or the very least forwarding non-straight white male action heroes, because having a property to hide under means that the entire movie isn't weighted on, oh, this is the female version of X, this is the female Die Hard, this is the female Passenger 57. It instead becomes, oh, it's the next Star Wars movie, and the hero just happens to be a woman, and that takes an awful lot of the weight off of it in some ways. While, you know, I'm obviously not saying that there isn't a large amount of invested people who really, really dislike the fact that that Rey is a Jedi, or that Rose is an engineer, well, or that like both of them actually get to have human emotions and be wrong at times. Because that's certainly a thing that you get an awful lot more criticism of when the female character's doing it than when you do with the male character. But I think the greatest advantage is making use of and leveraging those existing properties to normalize seeing female action heroes and normalize seeing non-straight white male protagonists. And non-straight white male stories is also the key thing, not just having male protagonist stories with the gender flipped.
Yeah, absolutely. That. Thank you very much. Valerie, what's your take on female action heroes?
Right. Well, I mean, Buffy and Ripley and all those were great. I would say that Hunger Games in 2012 really proved that this could be a thing that would make money in the big budget movie theaters. Just for me, Hunger Games really kicked off the concept, and I'm not sure if we would have gotten Star Wars and Wonder Woman and all this. I mean, maybe, but Hunger Games really proved that you could do this, and she's fully dressed through the whole thing, and she's the front and center action hero. There's a little romance, but is really pushed to the back. And again, she proved we could do this. Some of the pitfalls I've seen, one thing the creators can do is make the heroine indistinguishable from a male hero, which on the one hand, yeah, people recognize this and are comfortable with this. On the other hand, a lot of us don't feel like it's a very feminine story. And Rey, for instance, if you go into her symbolism, it's a lot of very male symbolism, although things like Maz Kanata and whatever break it up a little bit. I mean, you've got Arya in Game of Thrones saying girls are stupid, and an awful lot of female characters who like being feminine end up being, conniving, going mad, women with power, going to go nuts and need to be destroyed. So when you look at the male characters who survive and the female characters who spend their whole lives being masculine and survive, we just don't end up with a lot of feminine characters there. As far as fourth wave, that one, as far as timing, it's on the edge, and it was written in the 80s, and yeah, anyway. Moving out of that one. And yes, we made one superhero, female superhero, compared to the 30 male superheroes. You women should be satisfied. And yes, everyone was going, if this movie bombs, do we have to wait another 30 years? Whereas if a Superman movie bombs, 3 years later, there's going to be another one of those. You can also, of course, have Wonder Woman in her skimpy outfit, which, yes, is iconic. And you can have the pushback. And sometimes you just don't get a very good story, which, of course, provokes all the criticism. I mean, Ghostbusters has its fun side, but when you actually look at the women's story arcs and goals, you go, okay, she spent the entire movie wanting more wontons. That was her only character growth. That was the only thing she wanted. Can we stop and look at that about it? And as far as a shout out to, something special, I was really struck by Birds of Prey. I mean, I loved the TV show 20 years ago and thought it was uncool that it got 1 year, and Smallville, which came out at the same time, got 10 years. Do go watch it. It's on DVD. But anyway, the new Birds of Prey movie, they felt female, and unlike Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman, it felt like there was more than one Superwoman. She's not exceptional, one of a kind, only a few women can do this. It felt like an ordinary group of women off the street who all want stuff, who feel female, who have their own plot arcs and agency, who do what they want to do, and in battle, one of them wanted a hair tie. So I liked that one.
I agree. I absolutely love Birds of Prey, but I am an absolute sucker for a girl gang movie. And so I even did like, I mean, what I liked about Ghostbusters 2016 was the girl gang sort of aspect of it, rather than, yeah, you're right, the story was pretty pretty lame, but I loved the characters. Helen R, what do you feel about female action heroes, women action heroes?
Well, of all the films we talk about, I think the only one that would pass the Bechdel test, the one where a woman's talking to a woman, would be the Ghostbusters movie. Because even in Wonder Woman and in Captain Marvel and all that, you still got the male very dominant in the background. I can think of only one series that I would say totally covers the female aspect, was Xena Warrior Princess and Gabriel. But when you're having these action movies coming out and we're going, yay, a woman's in the front, where's the woman behind her? And where's the woman behind her again? Without the acknowledgement and without wanting to turn it into a feminist onslaught, which a lot of men, not all men, but a lot of men might find a turn off, we need to make that balance, and that balance isn't there yet. Of the Wonder Woman ones, I do love it. I do think the films are great. I've seen, and I only recently rewatched the Justice League, and she was very prominent in that. But you know, we need a little bit more of a pushback still to get the balance that is supposed to be there in society and isn't yet.
I'm not a fan of the Smurfette style of superhero films where you have, you know, only one woman, and you know, I kind of think to myself, well, what's going to happen? You know, why can't this character have a friend? Why can't this character have a mum? Why can't this character have, you know, I don't know, a personal assistant? You know, why does she have to be on her own? This is my argument with the Avengers series in general. I'm not a fan of, you know, Black Widow being on her own and not having anyone. Yeah, you know, who does she borrow a tampon off, for goodness sake? You know, well, who's going to give her a hair tie, Valerie? That's what I want. Well, Thor maybe, but you know, it's not. There's no sort of. It's not fun for the woman character in that film, I think. So time is moving on, so I'm actually going to skip a question. So I'm sorry about this, panel. Please don't. I mean, this is because you are also brilliant. So please don't get thrown by this. My final question is about, and actually this links quite nicely to what we've just been talking about, because in my opinion, children and young adult media does this really, really well. I wrote a review for the British Science Fiction Association's magazine Vector of My Little Pony, the movie, which I thought was amazing. I have a small brony living in the house, and I was wearing my Twilight Sparkle ears and horn earlier. And I think that as a film that passes the Bechdel test, My Little Pony, the movie, does it brilliantly. There are 6 female protagonists, really. There's one male character in that film, and it's absolutely fabulous. I love it. So what do you feel the popularity of shows like the She-Ra reboot, with adults as well as with children, and Steven Universe, likewise, it's popular with adults and with children, and other young adult properties. What do you feel that their better representation of variety of characters, a variety of genders, a variety of sexualities, and a variety of ethnic representation, where do you think those shows can be a very good impact on shows aimed at adults? And do you think that this is already showing up in, particularly on Netflix and Prime properties? Helen R, would you like to go first? I think you've gone last.
Particularly no, because some of the shows you've mentioned are not ones that I've seen, but I think the young adults are, and the children coming up now are more used to seeing the females out there, so I think they're more responsive. We may be seeing a generational thing when it comes to not being accepted by older people. I think there's a lot more women in production now who are pushing these aspects for the young adults, which may not have yet reached the higher echelons in Hollywood. So there's still a lot of shutdown, the shutout. You get people like Catherine Bigelow who do fantastic movies, etc. But it's still, she's touted as being, a woman producer instead of a producer. So I think we need to have more of those who are working maybe on something like Netflix or HBO or the channels that will really go for something unusual, who are more accepting of exceptionalism, rather than, I think it's going to be a time thing. I think it's going to be bringing it forward through the generations. There are always people like ourselves, different generations, who can come together with mutual minds in respect this. But when it comes to hierarchy in television or in films, I don't think it's quite there yet.
I was thinking about that in terms, I think a couple of us when we were chatting earlier said that we'd watched The Old Guard on Netflix, and I'm trying to remember the name of the director. It is a woman director, and it's just gone from my brain. But yeah, that film, I think, would have been brilliant in main cinema, but it's not in the cinema, it's on Netflix. And so I think that getting that talent out of Netflix and onto big screen is going to be a next challenge. Thank you, Helen. That's such a good point. James, what do you think?
The Old Guard, by the way, was directed by Gina Prince Blythewood, based on a story by Greg Worka. Something that a lot of people just don't understand is how difficult it is to get animation made in the first place. Quite a lot of Yona Vasquez's emails after the cancellation of Invader Zim were, "Why the hell aren't you still doing this?" And the answer is, "They're not giving me any money." There's a great interview which I very much encourage everyone to seek out, where the creator of where Noah Stevenson, the creator of She-Ra, Princess of Power, sits down with the creator of Steven Universe, and it's fascinating to read through because the rest of the world thinks this is just, but why don't you? You just write the words and put them into their mouths, and that's fine. And people don't understand the huge economic pressures there are to wash things straight, like just as a starting point. And then you have an animation industry that has up to now not prioritized having a diversity in the voice booth. So it's only with Steven Universe that we actually saw a predominantly non-white cast, and it doesn't really, there's the old adage that green people aren't representing anybody, and they're all a pile of lesbian space rocks, as they self-describe. So it's not really own voices and it's not really representation, but it definitely opens the door to true representation down the road, which is great. And getting that through the back door of a giant pile of awesome lesbian space rocks that the boys will watch anyway, because it's still a great cartoon to watch, and it's got a boy's name at the top of it. That is good, but there's still a lot of very complex math going on there to make that happen. It's tough to translate that into a more regular show, because I think the exemplar of this is if you look at the Arrowverse, which personally is a high point in terms of representation as far as I'm concerned, because Crisis on Earth X is a episode where the Flash marries his longtime girlfriend, and we see all kinds of LGBT representation all over that episode. They literally go to a Nazi planet, and we see an out bisexual superhero kiss his out gay lover on the mouth, and they talk about how they're in love with each other. And I punched the air crying because I genuinely never thought I'd see that in my lifetime. I was so amazed by that. And those shows try very hard to do better with representation, and it's the doing better is the important thing, because no one starts off knowing everything, and accepting that there may be a community you haven't heard from yet is really, really important in this kind of stuff. Because it's very easy to come in with received knowledge of, oh well, I was liberal 20 years ago, so I must still be a liberal now, when in fact that's not how that works at all. There's always new variations of people, and the way the Arrowverse, like, you can track this through Supergirl in season 1 is very much it's very much the white feminism show, and then when you see it transition from season 1 to season 4, they go through some very awkward stages of trying to make it intersectional, and some great examples of representation. They've a lovely coming out story for Supergirl's adopted sister, but also they have possibly the worst representation of African American men I think I've seen on TV, where they had to add a character for Jimmy Olsen to talk to, because the overwhelming number of African American actors on Supergirl as a show were all playing Martians.
Yes, that's very true. The Martian representation was awesome on that show.
Yeah, it's great.
Not so
But
much
as
the
they say,
people
green people don't really count as people of color.
Not really. They're a colour, but yeah, absolutely that. Valerie, what do you think about the way that children and young adult media might impact on media for adults?
Yeah, I live in Silicon Valley, where the majority of people are immigrants, and in my classroom, I just expect a majority non-white and so forth. So yeah, after years of watching things like Buffy and going, yeah, the people I know don't remotely look like the people on this TV screen, but I guess that's Hollywood for you. We're finally getting people and stories that do look like, for many of us, the people we actually go to work and school with. To the list of diverse cartoons that are absolutely doing amazing things, I'm going to add Marvel Rising, which Disney Plus, I think. I mean, heck, it's on YouTube, and they haven't made that many, but they were doing the let's get Kamala Khan and let's get the diverse superheroines, and we wouldn't want to actually put them all in a big budget movie, but we could tell their stories in America Chavez, and it's a delight and fits the list. But yeah, I'm used to real people having the issue of my mom is embarrassing, or my 3 moms are embarrassing, and they all have to come to dinner and meet my friends' parents, which is an episode of Steven Universe, and it's very relatable as he's going, I mean, they're aliens. All right, they're aliens. But yeah, and yes, I am seeing adult shows, Arrowverse, sure. Orange is the New Black, where, yeah, episode 1 is about the poor, privileged white girl going to prison, but very soon we're looking into communities that so haven't shown up on TV that much. Sense8 was wonderful and amazing and sci-fi. That's on Netflix last I checked. Glee was making a very big point of bringing in, again, the heroes the people you actually go to school with, instead of these Leave It to Beaver stories. Runaways is another one that definitely gets a shout out. So yeah, I'm really seeing TV shows doing the Supergirl and Legends of Tomorrow thing, where they're diversifying and finding what metaphors, what stories, what issues they want to talk about. Go watch them all.
Still pissed off with the representation, with the dramatization of X-Men, because X-Men was extremely important to me as a bisexual teenager. Very, very important to me. And I still can't quite get past how awful.
They made the Phoenix Saga twice, and she was a prop both times.
Can't get over that. Helen C, let's see if your Wi-Fi's
hopefully
behaving itself.
Well, I grew up with the original She-Ra and the original My Little Pony, and I've gotten to see the reboots as an adult. And there's that episode of the new She-Ra where they mock the original one, and I literally sat there going, "Is this what I grew up watching?" Went to like YouTube, and then had a moment of going, "How did I turn out okay?" Because even like the animation style, they all look the exact same. Like they have the same face. It's just different color hair. What
It is one doll replicated 8 times with different attachments, which is in essence what He-Man also was.
And I remember actually I watched He-Man like as well, and I watched Transformers, and my parents let me buy a She-Ra sword, but with the day we went there, they only had the like He-Man one, so my dad was like, just get the He-Man one. And like I was absolutely like devastated, because I was like, I don't want He-Man's sword, it's boring. And I think because I watched Steven Universe as well, and I think it's just that how they work for adults and for kids is that they're complex for both, and they don't make it any simpler for kids, because even in Steven Universe, the gems have such a complex relationship between themselves and with Steven and his dad. And in She-Ra, there's the main group, but they're also surrounded by adults as well, and there's no easy solutions. And I read that interview that James mentioned as well, because I think we do especially see Netflix as this like bastion of liberal and endless money, and how she talks about how getting the Catra and Adora relationship to the point in the final season, and how worried and how careful they had to be, was really hard to see. Because I watched most of She-Ra this year, because I went, if there's any year She-Ra is going to make me feel better, it's going to be this year. And I just remember watching the last episode on a Sunday morning, and then just like kind of like sitting there getting teary-eyed, because I'd never seen a cartoon where 2 women kissed and it was treated completely normally, and it was like, it wasn't even the end game. Like the romance wasn't the end game, it was a natural progression between everything that they'd done, and it linked to the main plot and everything. And even seeing Bo's dads, I love Bo's dads, as they have their own lives, they have their relationship, they have their kids, but they're still themselves, and they make silly jokes, and they're embarrassing, and they're just a breath of fresh air. And I loved it. Like every time his dad's like showed up, I kind of just like settled down and kind of went, okay, I'm going to be happy now, it's going to be fine. And I'm really glad that kids and teens get to watch shows like these, and that they've done well, and that hopefully Netflix will continue supporting these kind of shows, and that we can get them into Hollywood, because Hollywood really needs to get better in so many ways beyond just feminism. It needs to get out of its rut. And I'm hoping this is a sign of more things to come.
Thank you, and thank you to your Wi-Fi for behaving. That's awesome. So at the moment we have one question. Only one question. So I hope that's because everyone else has been so amazed by how brilliant we all are. But please do ask a question, one that hopefully provokes, a discussion between us, rather than just like squeeing with joy, like someone talking about Kelly Sue DeConnick's Bitch Planet. Yes, I love Bitch Planet. It's amazing, but I'm not sure we can get a discussion out of that. So we've got a question here from the marvelously named Sitara Swordweaver, which is about Endgame. And Sitara, this is absolutely, I agree with you so much. Did having the female heroes in Endgame do their whole "we're here to kick some ass" group pose in the final battle scene come across like a pointless box ticking exercise? And Estelle, you're nodding at me. Yes.
That's exactly what I would have said. You know, let's put in one moment of girl power to pander to all the people who liked the one Wonder Woman, the one Captain Marvel movie we did. Okay, good. Checked off that box. Now let's get back to Captain America's personal life.
Like,
Exactly.
the
I
minute
so
we even
agree.
just said like Endgame, I just sighed because I knew what the freaking question was going to be. Oh.
Yeah,
There's an interesting thing that a lot of people realize about the MCU that was happening behind the scenes, and it kind of a roar went up when Kevin Feige got control of the film department out from underneath Marvel proper. It was rearranged, and this just went by as like a minor press release, but it actually meant a huge amount to people who had been following from the comic side as it became movies. Ike Perlmutter is a man who there are exactly 2 photos of in the world, because he is a right-wing person, and he self-identifies as such, to a spectacular degree. He does not. He used to be an executive at Toy Biz, and Toy Biz is one of the many companies that owned Marvel down the years, or has been interconnectedly owned by Marvel. And he does not believe in female superheroes. He does not believe in female villains. He does not believe in female heroes. When Iron Man 3 was originally written, the main female lead in that movie was going to turn out to be the Mandarin, and that was changed halfway through production. The director has talked about this in interviews, and the actor has also said that when she was hired to be the Mandarin in the 3rd act of that film. It was going to be Tony creating his own demons, not by not letting a guy into an elevator, but by properly destroying a woman's life and her having justified reasons to come back at him, because he has his view of how to fix the world and she has her view of how to fix the world, and that would have been a very different story. The reason that we're getting Black Widow on top of Captain Marvel coming so close together and coming at the end of the Avengers cycle, is because of that Ike Perlmutter influence on things. He was holding back a Black Widow movie for quite a long time, and he was because the introduction of Captain Marvel was supposed to happen at the end of the 2nd Avengers movie. Now remember just think about how far back that is. She was cast, and they were actually ready to go to introduce her in the 2nd Avengers movie at the end of Age of Ultron, and that was 2 years after the 1st Avengers movie. So it was like halfway into this, they were ready to go, and so the battles behind the scenes are still very much being fought. And as much as we go, yeah, but this isn't good enough. Actually getting that little you get on screen is sometimes really difficult for reasons that we are completely not given access to.
That's a very good point. I think we do need to bear in mind how long the lead-in is to movies, but the way that the financial the way.
Oh, sorry. To just lend one last piece of context to that. I'm not saying the anger isn't justified. I'm not saying the anger isn't justified and that people shouldn't absolutely go, no, that's not good enough. That is absolutely a worthy thing to say.
And this is just another example of patriarchy making everything crapper for everybody. Helen, what was your take on the Endgame final, girl squad pose? Did you feel empowered?
Not good enough, but in a way, actually, I wasn't kind of going, oh, just pandering. I was thinking, well, that is at least one positive thing that the girls in the audience can see, girl power. And I'd love to have seen more of that. I really would. It was so short. But I love a film with all those characters, all those female characters pushing out there. So, he was pandering, but it was something, and it's not something we should accept, but at least it was one more forward point.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like we don't have any more questions. So let's then think about, as a kind of larky final moment, about the skimpy uniforms and swimsuit outfits of superhero comics, and the sort of more practical outfits. Do you think there'll ever be a place for a superhero whose main superpower is to sort out not having a wedgie? Anyone answer? Is that ever going to be justified again?
Well, sorry, James, you go ahead.
I was just gonna lend some context to the question. Gail Simone, who's the creator of Birds of Prey, has talked about on Twitter a number of times about how they like cheesecake. They like superhero cheesecake, and they believe that cheesecake is part of the genre. And so there's so when you look at a movie like when you look at Wonder Woman, when she's in her own movie, the male gaze is less at the back of your head, but when she's in the Justice League, she's smiling to make other people feel comfortable all over that movie. Her uniform is definitely a little bit shorter.
First one for me actually was Harley Quinn's outfit in
Suicide Squad or Birds of Prey?
Suicide Squad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No one else is wearing sparkly pants. Yeah, I'd love to see Killer Croc in sparkly pants, I must admit. But yeah,
there's memes.
Yeah,
switch everybody's.
Yes.
Yeah, the Hawkeye initiative, I believe, Hawkeye project.
Yeah. So I mean, what do we think about that? Do we think that can we say that is there a point to be made about the fact that if we're saying no more skimpy outfits, we're kind of slut shaming, or is it better to have more practical outfits?
If you're hearing a horrible howling, it's my cat. I think she thinks we're going away.
Nobody thought Harley Quinn got the sparkly underpants with everybody else in full trousers in order to make us respect diversity. She was eye candy, and in fact, she was crazy eye candy. And then her T-shirt got wet. I mean,
there's one of the things I like about The Witcher is that the Queen got no boob armor, but like Henry, like Cavill, is so bulked up that he actually ends up having boob armor, and it was just a nice little subversion. And it wasn't until someone pointed out on Twitter, I went, "Oh yeah, Geralt gets his boob armor."
Well,
Conan had boob armor and nothing protecting his essentials, did he? So there you go.
That's a coin to your Witcher. Unfortunately, no tossing of folding money.
Well, I was thinking actually of Zardoz and the ridiculousness of the outfit that Sean Connery wore in Zardoz. But
your sex.
But I mean, it wasn't in one of the recent Star Wars movies that the female stormtrooper, and somebody said, "Why don't they have curves on the female stormtrooper?" And they went, "No, because she's wearing armor, and it doesn't matter if it flattens her down." So at least somebody thought in a positive way for that thing. Just because you're female, you don't need your queer ass to be actually shaped.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I've been just given the time up, so thank you all. It's been absolutely brilliant, and I know we can't hear an audience clap, but let's clap each other anyway.
The Discord.
Yes, thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward to reading the comments in Discord. So yeah, thank you all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.